This conference will now be recorded.
So we are discussing about concept of interface, right? So in the keyword implements and interface, and before that we discuss about abstract keyword, right? So what is the abstract keyword in? It's a special keyword in Java. So we can apply for a method. If you apply for a method, obviously that class should be an abstract class. Otherwise, program will give you error, right? So right, and we cannot create object for abstract class. Whenever your class is abstract, we cannot create object for abstract class, and we can maintain implemented methods or unimplemented methods in abstract class. Implemented method in the sense with body, unimplemented method in the sense abstract method or without method body, right? So these are the key points of abstract keyword. And see, interface same like a class, that too a fully abstract class. We can say abstract class is two types. One is fully abstract and second one is partially abstract. Fully abstract in the sense all methods with abstract keyword, nothing but without body. Again, we cannot create object for interface, right? So who will be the implementation for these methods or abstract methods in interface? Again, we have to take an implementation class, the class or a child class, or we are saying as implementation class of an interface. The implementation class of interface is responsible to implementation of the methods, abstract methods. Whenever you're making a relationship between interface and class, so obviously automatically your all abstract methods of interface coming with method body to your implementation class. The best example we have seen, see MS Office interface extends class code, sorry, implements a class code Word, right? So Word and PowerPoint. So these are the classes, PowerPoint and Excel. These are the child class or implementation class of MS Office. So by this, so what I'm getting here, so I'm maintaining same names in three classes with different implementation. We can give a different implementation, but we can maintain common names. And if you want to execute, by the time you can create a child class object, and always the execution depends upon a runtime object, right? See, and tell me yes or no here, the questions, right? So question number one, I can make like this class. Question number one, class A extends class B. Possible or not? Possibility, please ping me. Is this possible or not? Yes. Thank you. Right? And question number two, class A implements B. Here, that I can say I, because I is an interface here. I can say in bracket interface. I is an interface. Is this possible or not? Yes, right. So this is a single level inheritance. So class extends class. Class here, B is here, a class here. Class extend class. This is single level inheritance. So it is possible, right? And here the class implements interface, nothing but earlier what we have discussed, same thing. So one class implements interface methods, right? And now question number three, class A implements B here. Here B is again a class. Is this possible or not? Exactly. We cannot possible, right? So always remember, class between class we have to make relationship between two classes by using only one keyword called extends, right? And class between interface we can make only one relationship, so that is implements. See here, suppose if it is a class, let's consider this is my class A. Let's consider this is my class B. Class B. I can make relationship between class B and class A like this, right? So whenever you make relationship like this, it will be B is a child here and A is a parent here. And again, we can make a relationship like this. Suppose if it is an interface, we can make relationship like this. Interface, I can say I. So for understanding purpose, I'm taking one more class here. My class name here is, my class name here is, let me take class T here. So if you want to make relation between interface and class, what is the keyword team? Implements, right? Implements. Interface name. What is my interface name here? I. So whenever you implement interface, obviously automatically all the method, whatever the methods present here, abstract method, coming with method body. Here you will get a method body for your abstract method. You can give your own implementation, right? And one more thing, one more question. Interface I implements J. Here J is interface again. Is this possible or not? Question number 5. Interface I extends J. Again here it is interface. So give me this answer tomorrow, team. Try yourself. Try yourself in Eclipse. So and let me know whether are you able to making with relation between two interfaces using implements and using extends. Clear? So let me know these two answers tomorrow. And now, what is the next topic? So next topic I'm like to discuss, the topic is constructors. Constructor. Constructor is one of the most important topic, team. That's why I haven't take class yesterday. So if I take this one, so you should get the clarity on all the concepts in Java. So constructor, one of the important topic in Java. Here, what is a constructor? So for understanding purpose, as of now, and all people are saying constructor is same like a method. Same like a method. And let me know what we have done or what we are achieving by use of method. What we are achieving by the using of method up to now. What we are achieving by the using of method. See, by using method, first of all, method is nothing but it's an executable block, right? So inside a block, we can write inside method block. Let's consider this is a method block. Inside method block, we can write a code, right? First thing, we can write a code. If you want to write anything, that should be inside a block. Already we know it, right? Whether it may be a main method or your own method. First of all, we can write code, and one more thing, we can pass parameters, right? So we know how to pass parameter by the time of calling. Suppose if it is having method or add method with int a, add method with int a, int b, we can add two numbers, right? So inside that we are using the parameters whatever we are passing through a parenthesis, right? We can pass parameter like this. Example already we seen number of example. Add method with int a parameter, right? This is one parameter, and even we can take int b like this, right? And one more thing, we can return values. Yes or no? We can return values. How we are returning values? How we are returning team? By using return keyword, right? So method ending, we can take return keyword. By using return statement, we can return the values. If I say return a, and it should be matched with my method return type. If it is integer, it has to be integer. If it is byte, it has to byte. If it is string, it has to string. Always my method return type is depends upon returning value data type. Clear? And now let's see, so how the syntax of constructor. Let me take a package here, new package constructor. Let me take class A here. The class name is A. CT. So constructor, I'm saying say like a method. First of all, let me take a method. What is the syntax of method team here? Already we know access specifier. You can take static or non-static. As of now, I'm taking non-static. Return type. My method name is test method in parentheses and method block. Understanding purpose. System.println. System.println. This is test method, right? Now, let me take a constructor here. See, constructor syntax, you have to remember this one. Anytime constructor syntax, again, same start with access specifier and constructor name. What is the difference here, team, between my constructor and method? For understanding purpose, I am saying system.println. This is constructor. See here, for my constructor, there is no return type. Here I am not maintaining return type. If I am maintaining return type, again, it will considering as method. It is not a constructor. And remember, constructor should not have a return type. If it is not having return type, can I return the values? Can I return the values? Typically, it's not possible, impossible. You cannot return the values by using constructor. There is no return concept of constructor. You should not return, you're unable to return the values by using constructor. See here, method name. We can take any name, right? For method name, we can take any name. See here, I can take test method, add method. This is my method. I can give my any name, my own name. You can give test1, test2, test3. So method name, you can give any name. But here, the constructor name, you have to give same as a class name. The key points you have to remember by the time of constructor signature, you should not give return type and you should not give the constructor name other than the class name. Always constructor name should be a class name. Able to follow? Here, observe the syntax. So what is the syntax here is constructor syntax is access specifier, no return type, and constructor name. Constructor name, parenthesis, this is constructor block. So you can write code like same like a method. Then how to execute this constructor? See here, how to execute this constructor? You may think like we can execute same like a method. Observing. So if my class having test method, how I are executing my test method? First of all, you are taking main method. Inside main method, you can create object for a class. What is my class? Class A. Object name is equal to new of A. Right? So like this. After creating object, second one, we have to explicitly call this method. What is the method? Test method. Now we can execute the test method. Nothing great. We are doing daily. Now observe the output. My test method got executed. Oh, sorry. My test method executed. This is how we are executing daily test method. Now, what if I want to execute this constructor? You may think that so by using same like a method, by using a dot, so constructor, so we can execute like this. Observing, we are getting error, right? So observe, I am unable to access this a. What they say? Create method. What is program saying? Boss, there is no method with a. Just create method, right? This is not possible. Observe. So if I execute this one, you may think only this test method will execute, but observe the output. What is the output we are getting? So constructor executing and test method also executing. Am I calling constructor here anywhere? As of now, no, right? See, constructor execution. Remember, constructor is executing by the time of your object creation. So whenever you create object for a class, see here, whenever you are creating object, here the constructor is executing. This is nothing but object creation, and your constructor calling here. Nothing but along with object creation, you are calling your constructor. Right? So how we are able to know this calling a constructor? See here, what is the syntax of object creation? So we are all discussing the syntax of object creation is class name, object name equals to new class name. Right? Remember, this is not a class name, object name, which new class name exactly. So here, this is class name, object name equals to new constructor. This is constructor. Remember, always, that's why we have a parenthesis. Remember, the parenthesis is nothing but you are calling a constructor. Always remember, team, constructor. When the constructor will execute, you are not able to explicitly call it. And whenever you create object, whenever you create object for a class, constructor will automatically execute. And we'll discuss when to use this constructor, how to use this constructor. Clear? See, here we are calling constructor. Always. So now earlier we discussed how to create object, class name, object name, new class name. If it is a class name, object name is new class name. So here you don't need to mention the parentheses here. Why we are making parentheses here? Nothing but you are calling constructor. Clear, team? And now tell me here, if I don't have this one, if I don't have test method here, observe team, I'm commenting this test method. Now I don't have test method. Anyway, I'm trying to call with object reference my test method. Now I'm getting error. What I'm getting error? So this will obviously say, boss, there is no test method, right? So as of now, uncomment this one. So I have a test method. I'm not getting any error. Now observe team. Let me calm this constructor also. If I calm this constructor, am I getting any error here? No, right? Why I'm not getting any error? See here, constructor. Whenever you don't give a constructor, the program will automatically create a constructor inside by the time of execution. That's why we are not getting error. And consider, if you're, even though if you're not mentioning here, and the program will consider there is a constructor and without any logic here. There will be a constructor, but you're not able to see the output. If you're not mentioning here a constructor, and program will consider, and program will create a constructor. Remember, team. So let's consider you're not giving any constructor here, and if I execute this one, same output. But you may think that the only test method got executed, but consider these also got executed. By the time of object creation, your constructor will execute. If you not mention a constructor, program will create a constructor by the time of execution. Clear, team? Any doubts? So far clear, right? See, constructor, same like a method, right? What is the constructor name, team? Always you have to give the class name. Whatever we are achieving with methods, we can achieve all the things, passing parameter, executing code. But one thing we cannot do with constructor, what is that? We cannot return a values. And when the constructor will execute, team, by the time of object creation. If the method, if it is a method, you have to explicitly call by your object reference. You have to call your method by using your object reference. Explicitly call it. You have to call. But the constructor, you don't need to call. If you create an object, that's it. The constructor will execute. Whatever the code inside the constructor, that will execute as it is. Right? See, if you don't have a test method, by the time if you don't have a method, if you're calling the method, that will give you error. Right? So if you don't have a constructor, by the time of object creation, it won't give any error. Why it's not giving any error, team? because so program will consider there is a constructor whether you mention or not mention. If you not mention, by the time of execution, the program or JVM will going to create constructor for your class. If you mention, the program will execute your own constructor, nothing but whatever the constructor you define inside a class, that will going to be executed. Now if I execute this time, and here this time it will execute this one, your class a class constructor. And let's think, if you don't mention your constructor this time, and the program will execute, and by the time of execution, JVM will create constructor for your class. That's why we are not getting error here. Clear, team? See, inside a class, can I create a number of methods? Inside a class, can I create number of methods? See, this is test1 method, this is test2 method. I can create like this, right? Inside a class, I can create a number of methods. And same like this, inside a class, can I maintain number of constructors here? This is my first constructor, system.out.println, constructor 1, and one more thing, constructor 2. See, I'm trying to mention two constructor inside a class. This is my first constructor, this is my second constructor. Observe it. I'm getting error. How to maintain number of constructor inside a class? See, remember team, by the time of methods, so we cannot maintain method signature, two method with method signature, same signature, right? By the time of your class creation, you should not maintain two same methods with in your class, right? So for that, we are taking the help of parameters. Observe. See, this is we are saying that default constructor. Constructors are two types. One is default constructor and second one is parameterized constructor. Default nothing but you are not passing any parameters. Parameter nothing but you are passing parameter. Then how to execute this parameterized constructor? Same, right? So see, if I want to maintain two methods, let's pass a parameter here. Int a. What if I want to execute my test method with parameter? By the time of calling, just pass any number. Now this time, this method will going to execute method with parameter, right? So same like by the time of calling constructor here, by the time of calling constructor, when the constructor will execute him, by the time of object creation. Now this time, if you pass a parameter, the parameter constructor will going to execute. Clear? Now observe the output. Observe the output. Let me comment on this one. Now observe it. This is parameter constructor. And here observe the output. What is the output here? It should be execute parameter constructor. Clear, team? Constructor execution depends upon your parameter. and which constructor you want to execute. You can pass parameter. Based on your requirement, if you pass parameter, that constructor will go into execute. If you don't pass a parameter, default constructor will execute. So like this, I can maintain different types of constructors. Right. This is int a. You can take int b here. Again, you can take like int b comma int c. By seeing this, able to remember on concept whatever we have discussed earlier. This is single parameter constructor. This is double parameter constructor because we are passing two parameters. This is triple parameterized constructor. Are you able to remember concept team? Anyone? By seeing this, are you able to remember anything? What is method overloading team? Methods inside a class having with same name differentiated by parameters, right? That is method overloading, right? See here, this is we are calling as constructor overloading. Constructor within the class having with same name differentiated by parameters or number of parameters. Clear? This we are calling as a constructor overloading. The definition you can say that the constructor within the class having the same name differentiated by parameters or number of parameters. Clear? This is constructor overloading. And now, see here, what I am saying earlier, if you don't mention a constructor, program will execute constructor by the time of or else program will create a default constructor by the time of execution. Now observe team, now observe, let's consider, now I don't have this constructor. I don't have this constructor. If I execute here, what will execute? Observe, if I execute this one, it will execute a single parameter constructor because I am passing only one parameter, that is a single parameter constructor. It will match for the constructor. See here, the what the I'm calling here 31 line matching with which one? 31 line matching with 8th line because I am passing parameter. Remember team, see by the time of execution, program will consider always your constructor and parameter by the time of execution. If you don't mention at least a single constructor, and program will create a constructor. So let me take one class here, new class, class name as of now B. See here. So as of now, I don't have any constructor. Let me create B equals to new of B. Nothing but, see, what is this B parenthesis? Here your constructor. If I execute this program, if I execute program, object will create. So internally, what is happening here? Internally, object is creating for your class. Nothing but, see here, see here. So if I creating object for a class internally inside a JVM, let's consider this is a JVM. Inside JVM, there will be allocation of memory for your class. Inside JVM, see, nothing but consider this is your object. Reference name, you can give any object reference. As of now, I'm giving object. See here, it will create a memory. Once create object for a class, so it will create memory, along with it will create default constructor for your class, and it will execute default constructor. If you having the default constructor in our class, so observe this B example here. See, let's consider this is B example. Now, if I execute this program as it is, what is happening here? Let's consider this is directly give this is a B, right? Here, am I mentioning any default constructor here? No, right? So what are the steps here? First of all, it will create object, and by the time of execution, it will create a default constructor here. For which class? For B class. By the time of execution, it will create default constructor in your program like this: public B, this one. This is default constructor. This is program creating. I'm not creating as of now. By the time of execution, it will create an object for a class, and it will create a default constructor for your class. This is what happening by the time of execution. Let's consider, so this is not program creating, if this is I am creating, this is my own creating my own default constructor. It's not about println, this is my own constructor. If I execute this one, what is happening here? Consider this is creating by the time of execution, program will create object for your class. Same thing, first step common, and second step, this time it will not create a default constructor. Now this time it will execute this constructor. Remember, if you not mention a constructor, program will create a constructor. If you mention a constructor, program will going to execute that constructor. Nothing but there is no parameter, right? This is a default constructor. Constructor, we have a default constructor and parameterized constructor. Parameterized, you can take any number of parameters. That is comes under parameterized constructor only. And remember, even if you have a parameter here, observe by the time of constructor calling or object creation, you have to pass excuse me. You have to pass parameter. Now this time constructor will going to execute which one? Your constructor only. And remember one key point here is, see, if you not mention any constructor, program, nothing but JVM will create a constructor. At what time? By the time of execution or object creation. And if your class having at least one constructor, at least nothing but if you mention parameterized constructor or default constructor, if your class having at least one constructor, I'm repeating, if your class having at least one constructor, program will not going to create constructor. Nothing but JVM will not going to be create a constructor for your class. This is apply for each and every class team. By the time of execution, this is apply for your each and every class. How many number of classes you are executing, how many objects are you executing. By the time of execution, consider these 2 points are common. So what are the 2 points? If you not mention any constructor, program will going to be create a constructor for you. for your class. If you mention at least one constructor, program will not going to be created, right? And third one you have to remember, you have to remember, this is the most one important. Always, I can include here the inside first one. See, if you not mention any constructor, program will create a constructor by the time of execution. And one more thing here, program will create a constructor when if you don't have a constructor in your class. Program is always going to be create default constructor only. Program is always going to be create default constructor only when if you don't have at least a single constructor. Now this time if you create object for a class, first thing it will create object for your memory, right? It will create memory for your class, and second thing it will create, and here this is, let's consider this is your first step by the time of execution. Here the second step, what creates constructor. Constructor, that too what constructor? It will create constructor, that too a default constructor. This is the second step, default constructor. This is the first step we are doing. In the first step, what it will be happen by the time of execution inside JVM, memory will be allocated for your class. This is a step one. I can say this is step one. And what is the step two here? Step two, by the time of execution, program will check inside this, program will check whether am I mentioning any constructor or not. From this, if I mention any constructor, program is not touch my class. If you have not mentioned any constructor, and it will create a constructor. It will create what? It will create again a default constructor, not parameterized constructor. This is what happening by the time of execution. Remember, always program create a constructor, that to which constructor? Only parameterized constructor. Sorry, default constructor. It won't create parameterized constructor. If you want to create parameterized constructor or default constructor, that's your wish. But if you not mention, always remember, if you not mention any constructor by the time of execution, program will create a default constructor. If you mention at least one constructor, program will not going to touch your class. It won't create a constructor in your class. Clear, team? Then you may ask, what is the use? We'll discuss. As of now, consider constructor is same like a method, and the syntax is with class name we can create parentheses, and here whatever the code you are writing inside a method, same code you can write here. So your logic you can maintain. But constructor, when you have to execute the constructor, whenever I'm creating object, by the time your constructor will going to be execute. Let's think. See, I have a method here, public void test method. Anyway, I want to execute this method, my test method. See, if I want to execute this test method, what are the steps we have to follow? First of all, anyway, we have to create object, right? After creating object, I have to explicitly call this test method. Consider this is a test method inside logic. Now I have a requirement. I have a requirement that there is a one piece of code I want to execute before test method is going to be executed. Getting my point? I want a code. I have some code, some piece of code. I want to execute that piece of code before the test method got execution. At that time, we have to go for a constructor. Anyway, constructor, at what time constructor executing? First of all, it will execute by the time of object creation. Then if you want to execute the test method, I have to call the test method by using B reference. Now here logic I can mention before execution of test method, or else let's consider a team. So let's consider this is the test method or test case for if it is a e-commerce application, test case for buy a product. If I want to buy a product, first thing I have to log in, right? So if it is login, I can mention here. So anyway, we have to log in before this buy product test case got executed, right? So let's consider this is a test case. Buying a product test case, and this is a logic of login. I can maintain like this. If you want, you can maintain anything. So first of all, it will log in when this B construct will execute by the time of object creation, right? And again, call your method by using object reference. So what are the steps here? If I execute this one, first of all, it will create object along with it will it will check whether I have mentioned any constructor or not. If I am mentioning, this constructor will going to execute, and what I am mentioning inside my constructor, just log into the application, and next step I'm calling the method. Now observing. Run as Java application. See here. First log into the application, then by product test case. Clear team? Let me summarize the point. See, constructor. Constructor same like a method. We can say same like a method, right? So let me ask a simple question. Already we have a method, right? Already we have a method. Then what is the purpose of constructor here? So only one purpose here. If you want to execute a piece of code before your methods going to be executed, then mention in your constructor. When the constructor will execute? Before your methods. Nothing but by the time of object creation. Constructor is same like a method. What we are achieving by using methods, we can achieve same thing by using constructor. We can pass a parameter, right? We can execute a piece of code, and by using constructor, we cannot return a values. Remember. And here, what is the difference here? The first difference is syntax, right? Method having the written type, constructor is not having the written type, and we cannot maintain return statement. And method name, we can give any method name based on your requirement, your wish. You can give any name for your method. And constructor name, you should not give anything other than your class name. Always remember, you have to give a class name for your constructor. Otherwise, program will not recognize that is a constructor. Clear team? And constructor is of two types. One is default constructor, other one is parameterized constructor. If you want to execute parameterized constructor, you have to pass a parameter. That's it. If you don't want to execute parameter constructor, if you want to execute default constructor, if you don't pass parameter, then the default constructor will execute. In a class, you can maintain a number of parameter, whether it may be default constructor or parameter constructor. And if your class not having at least one constructor, by the time of execution, program will create a constructor that to default constructor only. Program will not going to be create parameterized constructor. Clear team? Now just I'm giving a task here, simple task. See here, I'm having three constructors, right? four constructor. One is parametric constructor, remaining three are one is default constructor, remaining three are parametric constructor. Now I want to execute these four constructors by creating a single object. Let's come up with this task. So we'll discuss remaining concept tomorrow. Right? See here. What is my question here? I want to execute these four constructor with single object. Anyway, if I want to execute this one, I have to create object for what? Four times, right? So class A equal to new of A. This will execute default constructor. Single parameter object. Execute this one. Double parameter. Execute this one. Triple parameter. Execute this one. For executing this four constructor, I am creating objects of four times. What if I want to execute all constructor with single object? Now come up with this tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, team.